It's the 2024 fallow and red deer rut. We've got big plans, big mountains. Let's see how we go. Then I'll cut into this all sick B-roll footage of big bucks. This morning we've snuck into this scrape site. We're going to put a couple of trail cameras in here and see what happens over the next week. There's a little bit of activity, but generally it's quiet. There's a few reds making a bit of a moan up on the ridgeline, but one fallow, still a little bit early though. We've done a big loop this morning up this valley, up this southern face and back along to where we are now. It's been reasonably quiet. There were a few reds making a little bit of a moan in there earlier, but they closed up shop. It is early. We did get some trail cameras in though. That was our intention for this morning, and we've seen some fallow, so that's good. There's a couple of pigs out on this face over from where we are at the moment. So plan is we're going to drop down a level, probably lose 200 or 300 metres elevation and then go back up into that valley system a little bit lower than where we were. Just see what we find. I don't know if you'll get a gauge behind me of how steep it is up in here, but I've climbed right up onto the range. I've got a fallow buck 200 or 300 metres above me that's still having a bit of a croak. I thought it's worth the effort to come up and have a look because they're not too vocal this time of year. It's probably just a spiker and I've blown a whole heap of wind and sweat to get up here, but you never know, might be worth the effort. I've spent about an hour getting into position on this buck. I've got eyes on him through the timber and it's an absolute crap head. There's no way I'm going to shoot it, so yeah, them's the breaks. seen a few deer, not huge numbers, but enough to keep us interested. The wind though, that's been really fickle. We seem to have chased our tails round and literally we have done a big circle. I've done a lot of walking today and I've got pigs up on this hillside in front of me and I can't help it. Three little echidnas, look at that. That's pretty cool. Never seen three together. I wonder if one's a female and in season or something. We've climbed up really high, we're in the mist. There's not much of a view because we can't see very far, but we're hoping once we get up on this high point that the wind's blowing a different direction, getting rid of that mist, and we do have some visibility. Time for a mountain lunch. Doesn't get much better than this. We managed to get up on our mountaintop. We've punched through the mist as expected. We did find plenty of animals up here, but nothing of interest. We found quite a few fallow does, smaller bucks. We did find a red stag, but it was only a young 4x5, and a couple of red hinds. Now we've got to walk our way all the way back around. So top of that frame there, the car is on the other side of that ridge, quite the distance away. I've noticed it seems to be the trendy YouTube influencer thing to do is to talk about deer scat when you're out hunting deer. So I'll try and keep it real, give you guys some tips. Hopefully it helps. That real wet, sloppy looking deer feces there, that's what happens when you eat the portos. The plan now is I'm going to drop down under what we've named White Rock into this big catchment. The rut hasn't really started yet. The does are still by themselves. The stags and bucks, They're off in their own little groups as well. Solitary, they're starting to mark their terrain, definitely marking, but they're not really cranking, so the volume and consistency of those croaks and roars is really low. They are making noise, but it's certainly nothing like it will be in the rut. It makes it a little bit harder, but we are still having fun. We've got 3 fallow bucks up here on this timber line in front of us. Looks like they've got quite a big scrape up there. None of them are shooters, but they're still keen to watch what they're up to. One's bedded down, the other 2 are up on their feet. There's another animal over here in the gully that's letting out a little bit of a croak, and another one on that side. Hopefully we can have a look at all of them. How cool is this? I've just had a buck come tearing down the ridgeline I was on into about 8 metres. Wasn't a shooter. Great experience though. How to tell if deer scat is fresh? Well, if it's green, it's still slimy, tastes like grass, it's got flies on it, generally a good start. Another chapter in my tale of feces is these Musashi cookies. Absolutely terrible. The deer probably won't even eat that. We reckon it'll be there next rut. That's exactly where it's going to stay. Not eating that thing. I'm definitely in the zone of a buck up in here. There's scrapes everywhere. Heaps of little brush torn up by it. Can't see anything at the moment. You can smell it. Just have to keep my eyes open, poke my way along, see if I can get eyes on it before it gets eyes on me. I've just gone about 75 metres from where I've seen all that deer sign, and I've just decked a really tidy little buck up here in this timber at about 40 metres. He was just scratching around in amongst some silky oaks, and there were some does up above him that actually gave away that there were animals up in there. Just across that little gully over there is where I saw all that deer sign. And just in there, in the timber, look at my finger shaking, is that buck that I've just shot. I've had a little bit of buck fever, I think. Didn't that work out well? Found some sign, slowed everything down, stalked in on an animal, took the shot, down he went. I've got a really nice impact, front shoulder. It was a pretty easy shot. I got to lean on a tree and it was about 40 metres range. Probably could have used a bow, to be honest. He didn't even know I was there. Sorry guys, not enough time to set the camera up on the zoom lens. It's very tight in here. It's hard hunting, and I'm finding getting video of that very difficult. I am glad I got this one. It is a really nice trophy for up in here with these free range bucks, but it does make you second guess yourself when you walk away from animals like I did this morning, looking for something a little bit more respectable. Makes it worthwhile when you do get one on the deck. I'm really happy with that. Now I've got to make the decision whether I take the head off and the back straps out of it and walk them all the way back to the car and then come up here and continue to hunt. It's a really nice day. It's certainly not to go to waste. I should continue. So I either pack everything out and come back in. I'm actually contemplating leaving my bag and gear up in here, taking the items out off this animal that I do want back to the car, and then trek back in, pick my things up and continue on. You know what? On reflection, I think that's exactly what I'll do. I can't get over how much fat is on this buck still. He's in look at that. He's in amazing condition. Look at it. Swimming in it. I'm running these Havlon knives this trip. They're an interchangeable blade with a gut hook. They're around 3 inches. They're not the normal little flimsy Havlon blade that folds up within the handle. It's a lockable pull apart handle and an interchangeable around 3-inch blade with the gut hook. It's quite robust, and I must say it is still very, very sharp after doing just one backstrap. We'll rip this other one out, then we'll start on his head. It's worth carrying a saw and a good knife. This is much more manageable to carry out now. I've just legged it out and back with that skull cap and just my rifle. I've got back to the pack and the big camera, and I've got a red deer over on this face, middle of the day, having a bit of a roar. Well, that's a no-brainer. Guess which direction I'm headed? I'm not sure what happened to that red stag. He's been all quiet for about 2.5 hours now. I climbed up a long way looking for that animal. It's a little bit of a shame, but it is hunting. So my plan this afternoon, while I've got daylight, I'm going to contour this hillside back out along to the fence line and then cut my way back down into the valley, walk out to the car. I'm just working my way down a ridge line and I've woken this fella up. He's in my path, which is a little bit annoying. I didn't particularly want to stay this high, so I'm just going to have to bump him along, I think. There goes Fallow buck. He wasn't a real big one, so lucky there. That's what happens when you talk to the camera sometimes. I'm going to focus on getting down off this hillside. I've still got a lot of elevation to drop and a fair way to go to the car. I hope you've enjoyed what I've got up to today. It's certainly been very exciting. Let's continue again tomorrow. We've just come for a walk up into this big basin this morning and the deer are completely quiet. We've sat up under a tree for about an hour and we've had this really solid boar feed in underneath us and he's gone to sleep literally 40 metres from the tree that we were at. So, what's a fella to do? We weren't going to shoot any deer in here this morning, so I've wandered in. My mate's lent me his new Weatherby 307 to have a play with, and I must say, I do really like a nice 270, and it's done an absolute number on this pig.
It's a 6.5 Creedmoor.
It's a what?
6.5 Creedmoor.
A 6.5 Creedmoor?
That's it.
Well, I think I now need a man bun. Here he goes. We've got fallow deer up on that face all the way up there. They're right on the edge of that cliff line. I don't think I've ever seen deer so close to the edge of a big drop like that, but the heights obviously don't bother them. You can't tell me that good camo doesn't work. I've just had that little spiker come through about 6 metres underneath where I am. Check this out. Got these two red deer up here, just out on that face that I've just stalked into. I probably got to 50 metres from them. They're just two hinds. I was hoping that there was a fella out there, but not this morning. I've had a massive climb right up to the skyline this morning. There was a red deer up here having a few roars, but I've got up here, all I've found's 2 does and a heap of fallow. No red stags, so long way down to go, but that's what we do. We're starting out really high this morning. The weather looks nice after yesterday's rain. Be interesting to see what we can find dropping down into these valleys instead of climbing up into them. We've got a buck up here in the timber about 150 metres up. He doesn't look too bad. If we can get an angle, we will take a shot. Buck down. Let's go and check him out. Sun's just coming up now. Buck on the deck. A nice little fella. He's got very impressive guard tines for the size of the antler on him. Weatherby 307 in frame. That's what my mate's running. We won't talk about the cartridge because, well, this is a G-rated channel. It's probably not, but I'm sure you can guess what calibre it is if you've seen me be tricked into using it. Very nice indeed. We'll get a little bit of meat off this guy, get his antlers off, and we will be on our way. There's been plenty of slips, trips and falls as we traverse this big hillside up here this morning after that rain yesterday. It is very, very greasy, especially if you manage to find your foot on a wet tree root that faces down the slope. You basically go straight over, so it's nice and slow and steady. The deer are very quiet up in here, which is unusual. My mate's behind me having a bit of a rattle, but yeah, they don't seem to be that responsive this morning. The wind's good up in here. The weather's beautiful. Like I said, it rained yesterday. They should be active today, but they just don't seem to want to play the game after we shot that other buck. But that was probably a kilometre back there, so certainly wasn't upsetting them before. There were bucks down in here croaking half an hour ago. We're all about equity here at Edge of the Outback. I'm going to enjoy my iced coffee and some white and dark chocolate Tim Tams. No discretion, everyone's the same. This will be the third year in a row I've either gone up or down this hillside in exactly this position. Every single year we've said, not doing that again. Somehow we find ourselves back on the same slope. Straight down that hill we've just powered. Neither of us have complained at all. Talk about a crappy spot to see an animal. This is the trouble we've got to go to. I've managed to get the camera set up on the tripod, pointed out there. We thought it was a red stag, a 5.5, and it's a fallow buck with a little set of forky antlers at the top, so we've just mucked around, got everything set up, and we're going to walk away from him. I guess that's how it rolls, but we did think that was a red deer front on in that shadow for sure. We've just come past where that little fallow buck was that we thought was a red deer. My mate, he's a little bit chuffed with himself, you see. Right at the tree where that buck was laying, he relieved himself about 3 days ago. Yes, it was a number 2, and the buck was laying literally right on the little hole that he dug. So now he thinks he needs to go around and leave little deposits under all the trees he wants to find bucks at. He's a little bit happy with himself. He thinks his shit doesn't stink and the deer like it. Let's see how that works out for him. I've got 2 little bucks coming towards us down here. They're about 150 metres away. They are moving in this direction. We'll check them out when they get a little bit closer. If I do get a shot, we might see if I can take one of them out. Just decked this little buck with the 308 at about 100 metres down through all this timber. It's a little bit of a niggly stalk along this hillside. It's very loud. He was with another one and they were just sort of feeding their way straight towards us. They were pretty wary. I don't think the wind's been amazing down in here, but yeah, nice little animal to get anyway. There's heaps of sign along this spur line that we're working our way back towards the vehicle to, but there's just no animals making any noise. I've seen a couple of kangaroos, rub trees, scrapes, big pads. Just can't seem to find any deer. It's like they've vanished. That's been a massive day. We've been plodding around up in here for about 12 hours. Yes, we are getting onto animals. Lots seen, few on the deck. The focus has been red deer. We'll be back into it tomorrow though. We're up in the clouds this morning. We've got some bad weather blowing in today, so just trying to make the most of it while it's not raining. That will come. There's a lot of rain forecast tomorrow. We don't even know if we will get out, so we thought let's get a hunt in before that happens this morning. It's certainly windy. On the wind note, we're having heaps of trouble with that up in here. It's the swirliest wind that I have ever hunted in, I have to say that. There's no thermal to pick. You can go 20 metres and it'll be on your nose, and you go another 20 metres and it's straight behind you, another 20 left to right. It is just super swirly up in here. Makes hunting very, very frustrating when you think you've picked some sort of wind and you haven't. So it's yeah, certainly a challenge. We've got a fallow buck over here on the next spur over having a bit of a croak, but the visibility is maybe 100 metres in this fog and we can't see him, so we'll just have to sit here. Hopefully it decides to come back across this way and we can have a look at it. That buck's just come down that hillside, just in there. A little bit of footage of him. He's not a shooter, especially when it's early in the morning, maybe later in the afternoon. He might have been in a little bit of trouble, but we've still got a lot of country to cover. See all of that red stuff on that rock? That's blood and it's mine. I've just had this massive fat leech climb out from under my gator. Might be karma for killing his mate earlier this morning. Bastards of things. I've got a little buck and a spiker up in the timber here. Look to be having a bit of a rub. Let's see how close I can get. I've had that big fat leech crawl out from under my gator, and now we've both got all these phantom itches, and every little thing that we feel against our leg we think it's another bloody leech. Oh, and behind me, how's that for a bit of a deer scrape? It's actually a wallow. It's dry at the moment. We're hoping to get a heap of rain tomorrow and liven these spots up. Fingers crossed. I've got my rain gear on. It was always known that today it would rain. It's meant to rain more tomorrow. It doesn't make it any better when it finally happens. It did come a little bit later though, so no complaints there. That rain's cleared up a little bit in the last 20 minutes, so my plan is to cut a beeline up over this saddle and into the next valley. One thing the rain does, which is good, it's made things nice and quiet, but it is like ice on these rocks up in here. They are so slippery. I mean, this black mud, that's really slippery as well. So you certainly got to be very careful where you put your feet. And I'd say I'm in for a little bit of fun climbing up this spur here. There's no croaking at the moment, but the deer are on the move. I'm seeing plenty on this next level down, so I'm in a good spot to keep viewing that. I haven't bumped any in my path, so that's a good sign as well. We'll just keep looking down off this slope as I move along it. Something decent might filter along. I've stalked my way right over into this big basin on the next valley over from where we started this morning. The wind's actually good, quite the surprise that is. I've had a couple of fallow in the timber opposite here, they're not aware that I'm here. A couple of croaks up on the hillside, and up in there I've just heard a red deer roar, so that's the direction I'm going to head. Just shot a red deer up there at about 30 metres. I've just filmed a chocolate buck up on a scrape, and he's ended up getting up and wandered around me, completely around me, until he got my wind, and off he crashed in the dogwood. And I've gone to move up the slope, and this young 10-point red stag's come down. I haven't shot one since 2010, I think was the last time I shot a red stag. So yeah, I've pegged him really close as he was walking through all this timber. It was really niggly. I did have the trigger cam on. Hopefully it's not too dark and you can see the footage. I did manage to record a little bit of footage through the camera offhand as he came down this slope, and yeah, he got a bit of pace up and came down really quick. So I've pegged him just over here. Let's go and have a look. Yeah. I'm stoked to get this fella. He's actually a lot bigger in body than I thought he was. Makes his antlers look a little bit smaller. He's no monster, but he is a mature deer, and I'm really happy with the result. We've put a lot of effort to get in on these deer in these hills. The reds especially have been very, very fickle. The rut hasn't really kicked off fully yet. It should have, but I guess they're not on the calendar. So it's awesome. I did consider shooting that chocolate buck that was up there, but he wasn't quite as good as the one I got on day one, so I let him walk. Lucky I did, because this fella came straight down through the same spot. So really, really happy with that. Still a couple of days hunting to go. Very keen to see how this all unfolds. I've got a very heavy pack at the moment. Fair way to walk out of here. It's nearly dark and it started to rain again. So I'm going to see everyone tomorrow. Remember that big fat leech that I squashed earlier? There's my bite there. He's had a pretty decent go at me there. There's a lot of blood in my pants. I better get some antiseptic on that once I get it cleaned up. 90 mil of rain fell yesterday, so down day. Things are very slippery out here today. We had a very frustrating start. We're certainly hunting very hard for these animals, but things are looking up. Check this out. We've pushed up into this big valley system again this morning, and it's really quiet. There's water everywhere. It's very treacherous and slippery as expected, so we're just really taking our time. We were hoping the red deer would have been going off up in those big wallows that have been dry. They'll be full of water now, but it's very quiet. A few little croaks out of the fallow. We'll just have to continue. We've just got into our first wallow. There is water in it, but there hasn't really been any deer in it yet, which is a bit of a shame. We've just glanced up here through all of that cloud bank. There's about 20 deer up on that face. It'd be treacherous to go up there, but we're certainly going to sit back here and have a bit of a look at them with the binos and see what's what. I've got this chocolate buck up here on the hillside, up in there. He actually looks not too bad front on, but the minute he turns his head, he's all but got a stick on one side, a couple of little busted off points on the other side. So it's amazing how these animals are hard to gauge. They can look really good from the front or the back. You really need them to turn their head so you can see the palmation on their antlers, or get a bit of a gauge of height from a different perspective. There's a little bit of excitement. It's been quiet in here. We've just bumped a Menai fallow buck, not a shooter, up above us. Walked off him, went about 10 metres, and we've had a 5x5 red stag come roaring up the face towards us, so we've given him a couple of grunts back. No luck. He came in, thrashed a tree. We could both see his top of his head and his antlers, but not enough for a shot. We only needed him to take another 1 or 2 steps and we would have been clear. I was hot to trot, and he just turned around and walked back down the slope, so hopefully he's headed in the same direction as us, but certainly a good sign. We were sitting down this hillside about 200 metres underneath where I am, overlooking two old wallows. Now they're full of water, the deer haven't been in there. We've had a few small fallow spikers filter through on the pad underneath that bit of a hide. My mate's going to stay there and just see what does filter through. It's sort of the middle of the day at the moment. I've jumped up a couple of levels on the mountainside and I'm going to cut in on a big pad that's up in here and check out another wallow site about 1 kilometre further along the range. We did have a couple of red deer that made a bit of a mew up on this hillside, a couple of roars, but they're definitely not committing to the call, so I'm going to go and look for them. That's a good sign. Nice red stag print in the mud, but it seems to be going the wrong direction. At least the ground's quite to move in. That's really frustrating. I've crept up here like an absolute ninja, kind of. I've crested this little rise, wind on my nose, I've gone like 20 metres along and the wind is straight behind me and I've just had deer bust out of the timber 50 metres in front. No luck with this wind, that's for sure. I've got a red deer roaring about 300 or 400 metres down underneath where I am. I'm coming down a spur at the moment. I'm very tempted to drop down there and have a look at it if I can get eyes on. We'll see. Wow, that all happened really quick. I've just come down this bit of a face. There was a red roaring down underneath me. Came from nowhere, over the ridge, smacked him down here, rolled him. Let's go and check him out. He looks really good. Holy shit, I am 40 metres off that first red deer that I shot as it came over that saddle. I didn't film that, and I've just shot another one about 150 metres down the slope. He was with two hinds. Oh, far out. Wow. Speechless. Let's go and check them out. That other one's going to be hard to get down to, but wow. Wow, this fella's wedged himself in that tree really well. Let's try and get him out, have a better look. I'm absolutely stoked with this guy. He's a 5x6, so 11 pointer. He's not a hugely old animal, but he's got a big head on him and a really large body. You truly forget how big these animals are until you get up on them and you've got to try and manoeuvre them around for a photo by yourself. They certainly weigh quite a lot. It's going to be a bit of a mammoth effort to get this head and the back straps plus the next one down there all the way out. Fortunately, my trip is downhill. My mate can pick me up at the bottom later tonight. I'm certainly going to load up that Spiker Drover 25 litre backpack with a fair bit of weight. We'll just have to see how it carries it. I've got a feeling it's going to be quite uncomfortable. You never know. It might surprise me. You guys get to see the nice side of all these trophies, but there's a lot of work that goes into propping these big animals up for a decent photo. Love that gut hook. Couple of busted ribs in the top of his spine there. A bit sharp. I know it's not hugely taxing on a blade edge to take some back straps out of a deer, but this is my 5th animal I've processed. What is impressive though is I'm also taking the skull caps, and they are awful on a blade because the animals are full of dirt and mud and bark and stuff up around the base of those antlers, and this knife is still sharp. So I don't know if I'd get 5 deer processed like this out of my normal hunting knife, to be honest, let alone something with a replaceable blade, and I'm carrying 3 spares. Probably overloaded with those if I've got through 5 already. Let's see if it can do a 6th one. I just wanted to give a big shout out to Bastian from ASA, or Australian Sporting Agencies. He's the supporting person behind these rut deer hunting videos. Big thanks to him. He sells all sorts of tools I'm sure you guys would like to have a look at. Have a look at his website, and it's available in all your local stores. What a terrible way to die. Stuck in a fence. He's really tangled. There's no bones from the carcass, just a skull, some strips of dried meat, and the antlers. That's me looking back up the hill. I was up in there somewhere. The other deer's over there. Stag was standing here, from what I can see from the marks in the mud, and the roll angle down there is about 60 degrees. There's an antler sticking up just there. That is going to be absolutely horrendous down into there. I've got to try and figure out what I can do here. Here's where he fell. That is a massive set of antlers. That is an awesome trophy. Definitely a PB for me. Just got to figure out what to do and how to get at him properly. That might give you a little bit of a better idea of the angle down in here. It is bloody steep. I'm going to have to try and slide him down and under that tree. Down into there somehow. I managed to unhook him off that tree and not so graciously slide it down into that gully there. Let's see if I can get it down to the bottom of that a little bit. So I'm out hunting, yeah? Looking for stags and bucks in the rut. Everyone wants a trophy, but this is an absolute killer of a PB for me in the red category. Now, I've got stags on the wall at home with more points, but I don't have one with this mass, and this spread is probably close to 1 metre wide. He's around 2 inches thick on the girth at the bottom. His brow tines, they're about 10 inches long. He's got these big, gnarly tops that curl in, big wide nose. He's certainly a mature stag. I knew that it was a 5x5 when I shot him. You can see that in the footage as I recorded it, but I had no idea that it was an animal of this caliber. To be honest, it was all a little bit rushed. I shot that first buck, looked down, saw this guy, and thought, shit, there's another one. I'll get the camera out and set it up this time because I've got a bit more time. He was stationary. I'd obviously just fired a shot and probably disturbed him out of this gully that I'm in. So I had a little bit of time there. He had, I think, 2 or 3 hinds with him. So potentially that first one that I shot was a younger animal coming in on the wind to this guy with a couple of in-season hinds. So I've certainly taken out one of the giants up in this valley, and I am over the moon. It has been a huge amount of work up in these hills to get in on these animals. They aren't really roaring all that well at the moment. We get little, spits here and there and head in, and then everything goes quiet. It's really frustrating. We did have 1 or 2 come into the call and either couldn't get a look at them or the wind was bad. That didn't work out, so stoked to get in on this guy and get the opportunity. We're just taking advantage of what we do have here while we can, and enjoying some really good red deer and fallow buck hunting in the rut, which we are absolutely doing. That's the first head that I've shot, brought down to the big guy. Look at the size difference. Mass, width, brow tine length, hugely different animals. That's the difference. Probably 5 or 6 years of age will do to a red deer if they get given the chance. That's been the death of a Havlon blade. I've completely fleshed out this skull. I'm going to Euro mount this guy, and yeah, that chewed through that other blade, so I've put the filleting blade on and got through it. It isn't exactly sharp anymore though. Not going to make up some sort of fantasy story there, but I'm still very impressed with the blade life that I have got for easier, more sensible tasks. But yeah, that bone has just killed that edge for sure. Well, I'm heading down. I've got 2 deer heads on my back. That's the first. It is, well, it's heavy, especially with the full Euro skull on the back. So I did end up only getting back straps off one of those deer, the old fella I didn't worry about, but I've made up for that in skull weight. So, ouch. Yeah, down I go through the Bathurst spur. I've got one head still on my back. I've just dropped the big fella there, and now there's another chocolate fallow buck on the ground about 100 metres underneath me. So I don't know what I'm going to do with 3 heads. Probably have to mark where the fallow is, and we'll have to try and get the buggy up here tomorrow, or get back in to get him, because I'm not going to be able to carry that out. But anyway, we'll go and have a look at the fallow. For a day that started off like crap, what a great day it has been. This is a fantastic little buck. I'm really happy with him. He was just strutting around in this timber underneath where I was. I wasn't paying so much attention to looking for deer, more so not falling over with all that weight on my back. Fortunately, I'm only a few 100 metres above where the vehicle will be, so I'm going to continue down there, drop those other 2 heads off, hike my way back up here, sort this fella out. I reckon about now you guys are watching this thinking, wow, these peanuts are shooting every buck and stag that they see. We're actually not. We're walking past quite a fair few animals, but we are taking the ones that we like the look of or that are good to hunt. Why are we doing that? This area has been subject to heavy aerial culling by government services. Those guys have put a really big dent in the deer numbers last year, and they will be back. So we're making the most of the hunting while we can. Do you guys remember that property that I was at last year that was deer mecca absolutely everywhere? Well, that was cold as well, hence I'm not back there. What a fantastic trip. I'd like to say a big thank you to my unnamed mate Bucket, who's on the other side of that camera. Yes, he's got a bit of a smirk on his face at the moment. No, I'm not going to tell you what his name is. Without his help, these trips wouldn't happen. So genuine, thank you, mate. I've had a great time up here. New PB red stag, super stoked with that. I think I've shot 3 reds, 3 fallow. You've decked a couple of fallow. It's been probably some of the hardest hunting I've ever done. The rut hasn't really kicked off yet properly, so we might get a little bit more action yet. But if you have liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Ensure you subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it if you'd like to have a look at my Patreon, and I'll see everyone next time.